Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Album War. The premise of this series is to talk about two or more bands or artists that recorded an album with the same title. Regardless of era, regardless of genre, I discuss the albums, what I like about the albums, what I'm not so crazy about with each of these albums, and I declare the winner of the Album War. This album war was suggested by Thomas Weary. Thank you, Thomas. Thomas suggested this album title and the two albums that I will be discussing today. The album title is Monster. As the late, great Ed Daring would say, let's meet the principals. The first band I'm going to talk about is one of the great hard rock bands. Doesn't get enough recognition, in my opinion. They had an iconic hit single in Born to Be Wild, which is considered one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time. They also had other big hits such as Magic Carpet Ride and Rock Me. I am talking about none other than the great Steppenwolf with their fourth album released in November 1969 on ABC Dunhill Records. Monster. The other band is one of the more recent greats rock bands from the United States. They are no longer an active band. There's been rumors that he may get back together. They have released a fantastic catalog. Some of their works from most notably the 80s and maybe the early to mid 90s are fantastic albums. One of the great college rock bands, certainly. I'm talking about R.E.M. with their ninth album released on September 26, 1994 on Warner Brothers Records, Monster. This is an album I bought as a new release on cassette. I know that Kiss has an album called Monster. I know Herbie Hancock has an album called Monster as well. I have lots of albums by both of those artists, but I do not have Monster, so I did not add them. And I also wanted to keep to Thomas Weary specific bands that he recommended here, Steppenwolf and R.E.M., respectively. Let's talk about the albums. Let's talk about Steppenwolf, who released this album in November 1969. Their lineup at this point was John Kay on vocals, harmonica, and guitar, Larry Byram on lead guitar. This would be his first album with Steppenwolf. Nick St. Nicholas on bass guitar, Goldie McJohn on Hammond and piano, and Jerry Edmonton on drums, as well as the lead vocal on What Would You Do If I Did That to You, produced by Gabriel Meckler. So, this is an album that John Kay wrote about the Vietnam War and his feelings on the Vietnam War. Very topical album. He goes into other things besides the Vietnam War, but everything on here all the lyrics here are very defiant and have a sense of purpose. The lyrics on here are a wonderful album, and you don't have to read between the lines to know what John Kay is talking about and how he feels about it. John Kay is one of the great voices in rock music. He had this amazing stage presence, and he had this voice that really took you in. They had the big hits with Born to Be Wild, Magic Carpet Ride, and Rock Me. What really brought you in was John Kay's voice. But the band Steppenwolf were a force to be reckoned with. And I don't think they get the recognition that they should as musicians. They were this very loose hard rock band, and they had a lot of chops to them. And I think the fact that they had the three big hits, they're kind of no more as a singles band, but as proven here on Monster, they were certainly more than that. This album hit gold in the United States. It was, I believe, their last of their four gold albums or proper albums. They may have some greatest hits albums that are gold or platinum as well. This hit number 17 on the Billboard Top 200 album charts. It also hit number 11 in Canada. There were two singles released from this album, which I will get into. They both hit the top 40 here in the States. They charted higher in Canada. So let's get through the tracks. The first track is the 9 minute and 15 song suite called Monster. Suicide America was later condensed into a 3 minute 55 second single for Monster, which would hit number 39 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 16 in Canada. This is very poignant. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a progressive song, even though there's different parts to this and different time signatures. The monster part of the song starts out very almost like a folk song, but then it gets more riveting and driving during the chorus. When it goes into the suicide part of the song, it goes into the slow grinding blues. The focus here is on John's lyrics, and John is very upfront about how he feels. I'm not going to go deep into the lyrics here, but if you read the lyrics to the song, and they're the only lyrics that are released, or I'm sorry, listed on the CD that I have here, you see how John really felt about the Vietnam War. And then it goes into the America part of the song, which is probably the hook in the song. When you listen to the single, it starts with the America part of the song. But this is a very strong opening track. It You have to listen to it a little bit to really get into it. It doesn't really have a great hook, although America, Where Are You Now part is very memorable. It's a cool way to open the album, and I like it a lot. Draft Resistor has more of an eerie feel with the keyboards in it. And once again, we got John with those great lyrics and that commanding presence, a lot of swagger in his delivery. Got some great drum fills on here and great guitar work as well. This is very, very good. Power play, we're going into more of a blues rock feel on here. And this is very, very cool. The musicianship on here is very, very loose, but it's very strong. We got great solos on here throughout. Excellent. Move Over was the single. This hit number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100, hit number 12 in Canada. You can see why this was chosen as the first single. This is a song of defiance and perseverance. It's got an excellent chorus. It's very driving, very riveting. Got a great hook in that chorus. Very, very cool. The piano is leading the way here. The piano on here, when you first listen to it, it reminds you of Get Ready by Temptations or Rare Earth later on, maybe around the same time. It has that same feel, but you can see why this was the single, and this song kicks ass. Fag is a instrumental which is led by the keyboards of Goldie McJohn. This is pretty decent. It's probably my least favorite song on the album, but it's decent for what it is. The next track is What Would You Do If I Did That to You? Now here we have some backing female vocals on here. We have Jerry Edmonton doing the lead vocal, but there's nice call and response in the verses on this. It's got a very hard R&B feel to it. You really notice that in the beginning with the rhythm section. And this is very, very good. The closing track is From Here to There Eventually. And this is like a tour de force because it starts out very hard hitting and then it gets more whimsical and reflective in the choruses. Then the female vocals come in and it keeps that same feel up, but then there's drama coming in on this. And the vocals add a lot to it, but the instrumentation does as well. It seems like it's going to fade out a little after the 3 minute part. And then it rises back, and then it ends quite chaotic, particularly with the female backing vocals. Now we're reverting more to gospel at the end here. And there's a lot of drama brought in with the music, and it's really, really cool. This is a great way to end this album. And this is an album I did not own. I only bought this after Thomas suggested the topic. But Thomas, thank you again, because I'm glad that you suggested this, and I'm glad that I bought this album. And just to let you know, I'm going to go deeper into this band's catalog. I've had a greatest hits cassette by them for decades, and that was as far as I went. But now that all of their music is available on CD, I'm definitely going to dig deeper. So eBay is going to get some orders from John the Music Nuts. I did see Steppenwolf in 1993, John Kay and Steppenwolf. They played this $10 carload show. We used to have these carload shows where you get as many people in the car for $10, and they put on these kick-ass shows at the Bud Light Amphitheater in Harveys Lake, Pennsylvania. At that time, I probably lived about 10 miles from that venue. That venue no longer stands. The home that I own today, if that venue was still standing, I'd be 4 miles away. I'm that close. I'm not far from the lake itself. And they had some great shows back in the day, and that was the first show that I ever saw there. Strawberry Jam, a local band, opened, and they were very, very good. And they were known primarily for their covers, but they had an original album out at that time, and they played that whole album. And then they ended it with Allman Brothers Band's Jessica, and it kicked ass. Edgar Winter Band came on next, and they were awesome. They were fantastic. And then John Kay and Steppenwolf closed the show, and it was killer. Only time I got to see John Kay and Steppenwolf, but they kicked ass. So, Monster, very good album. Now let's get to REM's Monster from 1994. This is when I was really heavy in, and I still am to this day. There'll be a ranking the albums by REM in the near future, I assure you. The band at this point was Bill Berry on drums, Peter Buck on guitar, and Farfisa organ on one track, which I will talk about. Mike Mills on bass, piano, organ, and guitar on Let Me In. That was the track with the Farfisa organ, so okay, no spoiler. And Michael Stipe on lead vocals. Now, this was a return to rock for REM. The previous albums, Out of Time and Automatic for the People, respectively, went into this more of a folk direction. That's when they really, really broke through here in the States. They had hits before with The One I Love from Document and Stand and Shiny Happy People from Green, respectively. And those albums had some tracks that had a bit of a folk feel, more of acoustic feel. They really went full bloom into that on Out of Time and Automatic for the People. Both very good albums. I like the rock side of REM a little bit more. And here they went back into rock, but it was a different kind of rock. They relied a lot on mood and a lot of distorted guitars on this album. And it kept up their success. This hit number one in the United States. It sold over 4 million copies. We got two top 25 Billboard Hot 100 singles on here. The songs were even bigger in Canada, and I'll go through that. There were 5 singles from this album. This got played heavy on alternative rock stations and album-oriented rock stations here in the United States. So the opening track is What's the Frequency, Kenneth, which you still hear to this day. This hit number 21 on the Hot 100, number 2 on the AOR charts, number 2 in Canada. The great riff in here that opens the song is the hook. This is killer. The chorus is very cool with the guitar slashes in there. Very, very memorable track. This is REM definitely saying to the world, we've changed our sound. We're rocking again. Crushed Red Eyeliner, we're relying more on those guitar effects here. This is a very different song. We're using a lot of echo on the guitar. Very, very cool. This was also a single off of this album. It didn't do quite as well. It got played pretty heavy on AOR. This is very cool. King of Comedy is a pretty cool tune also. Uh, got more of a stop start rhythm on here. It's little different song for this album and for their catalog, but it's still really, really catchy. I Don't Sleep, I Dream has that more atmospheric feel, which you had on some of the songs from Out of Time and Automatic for the People, certainly, but here it has a different kind of feel because of the guitars. But the way Michael Stipe really approaches the vocal on here, particularly through the choruses, is very well done. It is very cool. Star 69 is more of a driving track. Very memorable chorus on here. We got a nice breakdown after the second chorus, but it's that great guitar riff that really drives it. Strange Currencies was the fourth single from the album. This hit number 47 in the US, number 8 on the album Oriented Rock charts, number 13 in Canada. In scope, it sounds like something that could have been released on Automatic for the People in its delivery. It's got a wonderful chorus on here, wonderful vocal from Michael Stipe, excellent bridge on this as well. But this could have fit right in that album like a glove. It doesn't sound out of place here because the guitars have more of a dis of a they're more ringing guitars here, but a little more distortion. They're not as not There's no acoustic guitars on this. Well, a little bit in the verses you have it. Actually, it's plugged in, but it's clean. This is this should have been the third top 40 hit off this album in the States, in my opinion, because it was just a excellent song and it had a wonderful chorus to it. Tongue opens the second half of the cassette or the vinyl. This is more atmospheric. It's led by those keyboards and more of an it's got a different feel on here. But Michael Stipe is singing more in a falsetto voice. It's an interesting way to open the second side. It's pretty cool. Bang and Blame is the next track. That would be the second single from this album. It would be the biggest charting single here in the States at number 19. It would hit number 3 on AOR, and I believe it number 1 in Canada. This is an excellent track. You got the rhythm section driving it, and you have the guitar, which is very echoed from Peter, is on this, but it's the rhythm section really driving the track as well as Michael's vocal. And then it gets more kinetic during the verses. Or I'm sorry, in the chorus, which is really, really cool. We got a nice musical bridge on this as well. And we also have a nice fade out on here where that groove that's laid down by Mike Mills and Bill Berry is very cool. Excellent song. One of their finest, in my opinion. Then we go into I Took Your Name. That's more the in feel, it's kind of more like grunge, but maybe the distortion on the guitars isn't quite as heavy, but it's very, very cool. Let Me In is the song that they wrote for Kurt Cobain, who had passed away a few months he before REM put this album out. The Farfisa organ on here really adds a lot of ambiance and drama to it. The lyrics are very sparse, and this is a very poignant song. Michael and Kurt were good friends for a few years before Kurt took his life. In fact, Kurt always said that REM was one of his favorite bands, and he was always interested in what they were going to do next. It's definitely more of a avant-garde piece, but it's very well done. Circus Envy has these jarring guitars that are really, really cool. Again, more akin to grunge. This is probably the closest it gets to grunge on this album, and it's pretty cool. You is the haunting closer. Michael's vocal on here is fantastic, but this is all about ambiance and drama, and it's a very, very cool way to end the album. This is one of my favorite REM albums. It's critically, a lot of people liked it. A lot of critics weren't too high on this album, but I this is probably in my top five, and they have a strong catalog. I love everything except for Around the Sun, and I think that's kind of the consensus on REM. Like Around the Sun was a misstep, but everything else around it had a lot to offer. So this is REM's Monster, the second album in this album war. So who wins the album war? Okay. I dig this album a lot. I give this a 7.5. If I had more time with it, it would probably be a higher ranking. But REM's going to win for me today. This I give a 9. I give a lot of their albums a 9 or a 10. Maybe in hindsight, maybe it's not my top 5 albums, maybe top 7, because it's probably like 4 albums alone by REM I would give a 10. But today they would win the album war over Steppenwolf, although this is a very good album. If you watch the Midnight Special channel here on YouTube, they recently put up a episode that Steppenwolf was on from early 1975. Definitely check it out. It's the latter day Steppenwolf, but they were doing songs from that new album at the time. They're still pretty good, but it's a very good episode. And what was great about the Midnight Special, and I was a youngin at the time this came out, but the eclectic musical nature of that show, hosted by Wolfman Jack. You have Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters, you have Linda Ronstadt, and you have Steppenwolf. It was a very, very cool show. Definitely check out the show if you haven't, and subscribe to the Midnight Special channel. It'll give you an education, or it'll maybe give you a reminder of the great musical variety shows from back in the day. So, thank you so much for watching the album war today. More to come here on the Music Nut program, just to let you know. I will be appearing live Monday, May 5th, 2025, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Grant's Rock Warehouse. Join me along with DC Toontime, BM Bolt, Yvonne the Music Man, and the return of the great Todd Evans, along with the incomparable Grant Arthur, as we talk about our 10 favorite songs from 1990. We always have a fantastic rapport where everybody watching live in the chat, they always have great picks, and we always have a pretty eclectic selection of picks because we're all into different stuff, but it's all good stuff. So thank you so much for watching today. Do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.